do you regret saying these things so publicly if that's what got you here?
It depends on how this turns out. There's no way that I'm going to look back on this experience and say, like I would have boot camp, well, I'm glad I had that experience, but I'd never do it again. No, I'm not glad I've had this experience. The toll it exacts is far greater than the lessons that it imparts. But I can certainly see how things could result from my case that I can end up being very proud of, such as the government corruption that has been uncovered that clearly is going on, not just in my case, but is going on in so many federal detainee cases throughout America. This needs to change. It needs to stop. And if my case results in that, I'll have to tell you that I'm sorry I was the one, but I'm sure glad we got that result.
I'm just looking at the sentencing memorandum from the government that you're going to be sentenced in 2 weeks.
Yes.
My math is right. It says, the facts show a person who manipulated, coerced, and intimidated others to do what he wanted done. The facts show a man who was desperate with self-pity, beset by his physical ailments. His marriage was not fulfilling. That's what they say your motive is here.
Yeah, conjecture. Pure conjecture. Unfulfilling marriage. Where's the proof of that? My wife and I love each other. We have for 27 years. She stood by me through this. What does that say about our relationship? You got to ask yourself, she's privy to every bit of evidence in this case, and even though we were prevented from talking to each other, she decided almost immediately that it was a put-up job. I mean, how many women are going to do that and then stand by me the way that she has?
Do you think so? I mean, I'm going to just play devil's advocate. Do you think I think if somebody came and told me my husband was trying to have me killed, I would say, no way, he would never do that. And then there's an embarrassment factor. I wouldn't want people, I would say, no, it must be somebody else. No way he would want me dead.
Well, so you want your husband to be released so that he could actually kill you, huh? No, that's not what happened in this case. I think initially she was willing to believe them. I mean, she's like any American. My government wouldn't do this. Is the FBI. They wouldn't do this. I see them on TV all the time. They're the good guys. Wrong.
You're facing more time for the witness tampering, or the victim tampering, whatever it is, than you are for the murder for hire, the explosives.
Well, that's not true, but I'm facing a ridiculous amount of time on each of the charges. If they have their way, they're going to give me 60 years. I'll get out when I'm 125, I guess. 126.
They have the recording of you saying you need to stand like a rhinoceros and tell them that is not me.
That's right. And I said that. And there's no question that is me on the recording. But I wasn't telling her to lie. I was telling her to be resolute. I know how this goes, and I know how the FBI intimidates people, just like it tried to intimidate my wife into taking up their party line. But she's got a mind of her own, and she stood her ground like a rhinoceros in the road. I wasn't telling her to lie. I was telling her to tell the truth. There's no way I could get her to lie, and she knows that, and I know that.
You never wanted to kill your wife, never tried to kill your wife?
Absolutely not.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm going in the right direction here with moving this forward. But are you?
We're going to talk about the government corruption, right?
Well,
I keep dropping that hint on you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I want to make sure we cover every fact of this case first, for sure.
Sure.
A jury, it didn't take them that long to convict you.
A couple of days, not that long, that's right.
Especially with as complicated as the federal jury instructions can sometimes be in those things.
This was very simple because nobody fought to have any instructions put in that helped my case at all.
I like that you said that you should have represented yourself. Why didn't you?
Because I've sat through trials with the accused next to me many times. It's not an unfamiliar situation to me. And I got to tell you, just shifting from that seat to this seat makes all the difference in the world. And for the first time in my life, I realized why you really have lawyers. I couldn't trust myself. I couldn't trust my point of view. I still feel like Alice gone through the looking glass. I can't, even though I have investigated, I've seen it in case after case, how the government has fabricated evidence and done wrong things that I want to tell you about in this case, that we're telling the U.S. Supreme Court about just today with a filing, by the way, that I couldn't believe what was going on in my case. Is this really going on, or is it just because I'm in the hot seat this time? Other lawyers have told me they've never seen anything like this, so there is something going on.
And it is. I will talk about the conspiracy the corruption, because that's obviously the biggest contention. Where does it start, and how far does it go?
I think it ends up being a combination of personal greed and group political agenda, frankly. And we know what the political agenda is in my case, because I've spoken out against the government. I've written essays where I've just gone right up to the line of advocating violent revolution, but I know where the line is, so I never step over it. Do I believe we should have a violent revolution? Absolutely not. I wouldn't say that, because that would be illegal for me to say that. But we need some change in this country. And you can't change it, and it won't allow you to change it with the systems that were put in place. Remember, it was Thomas Jefferson who said, "The tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots alike from time to time." He knew that when the country was set up, that ongoing revolution would keep it honest. We haven't had anything like that. We have a two-party system. That's a joke. Yeah, right. There's a difference between George W. Bush and Barack Obama. Barack Obama comes in promising to get us out of one war and leads us into two others. Now we're back to one war again, and he's claiming how much he's done for us. Excuse me, you were supposed to get us out of the first one as a result of us putting you in office. And now he's angling to put us into Syria, it appears, as well as a number of other Middle East countries. There's something wrong in this country. I don't think Barack Obama is a bad guy. I personally like him. But he's an empty suit. He's being run by other people behind the scenes.
So when you say personal greed in your case, is there a person specifically?
Yes. Larry Fairfax stole silver, wanted to cover it up. Okay? Needed to get me out of the way to do that. This FBI agent who has his fingers on these recordings, I don't know who did the recordings, but the odds imply heavily that this FBI agent was involved with them. Why did he violate so many FBI protocols in making the recordings? How do you think FBI agents get promoted? There's a North Idaho task force that he's a member of that was formed about 12 to 13 years ago at the time of the Aryan Nations hoo-ha. And they haven't had much to do all these years. There really aren't that many skinheads. And there certainly aren't any violent political dissidents around here. And I'm not one of them either. I absolutely abhor violence and speak out against it. But that task force hasn't had much to do. You know how we always hear about the fireman who sets the fires because he's underemployed or wants to be a hero and get advanced? You think that only happens to firemen? How do you think FBI agents get advanced? This Sotka guy has been caught in lie after lie after lie. I think the chances are pretty good that he had personal greed for being advanced as his motivation. And this all got caught up with group greed on the part of groups like the ADL, the SPLC, maybe the Justice Department. After all, the Justice Department runs the FBI. But then so does the ADL.
Shortly before, I went back and looked at some of your readings. Shortly before you were arrested, I wish I had it with me, and I don't, but you basically said something big is going to happen. You kind of hinted that I'm about to shake things up.
Oh, I put out an internet message because I've been getting all these messages from my list members complaining that I wasn't being polemic enough in my writings, that I wasn't going after people. And I had gotten a rash of death threats at the same time. And now I don't know who was behind those. They'd come in by email, they'd come in on my answering machine. But I got annoyed. And then I had this epiphany where I had this aortic aneurysm where I literally died. I died. They brought me back to life. They were operating me in the hospital elevator on the way to the operating room. I see myself coming to an end, and I'm getting people clamoring for me to speak out the way I used to because I'd quieted down a lot in recent years. And I decided I was going to do that.
And you were speaking out. You were not advocating some sort of a...
Oh, no, absolutely not. I told them in the list message, which is still posted on my website, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. I saw it yesterday.
That what I was going to do was return to a former style of writing that I'd had.
How far does the conspiracy go?
Well, it depends upon which ladder you want to trace. How far does it go up official government ladders? I don't honestly think it goes up too far. It's like the JFK assassination. Most people believe that he was assassinated by somebody other than Lee Harvey Oswald. A lot of people think that it was some elements of the U.S. government and or the Cuban government and or the mafia, and take your pick. I suspect that there was an element of the U.S. government involved, a rogue element of the CIA, which Kennedy had pronounced he wanted to put out of business, or the FBI, or the military because of that Bay of Pigs fiasco that he wouldn't support and get our people out of when they got in trouble. It may be just organized crime because of Bobby Kennedy going after them as the Attorney General. I don't know. But I think chances are that there were rogue elements of our government. And there always have been those rogue elements. And yes, I think those rogue elements are involved in my case. I think one of those is this FBI agent, and I think, the prosecutors have been remarkably venal, vindictive in this case. And I've looked at it right from the beginning and wondered, what are they so angry about? Aren't I innocent until proven? No, you're not innocent until proven guilty. You're guilty until you're not able to prove yourself not guilty. That's the way it really works in America today. They convict all but 1 out of 212 federal detainees. Did you know that? 1 out of 212. That's a remarkable approximation of never. Okay, once you get in the system, you're done for, and I can see how it happens. I've always had my clients tell me that this stuff was going on, but I always thought, well, they were listening in because they want to make sure there are no jailbreaks. Nah, that ain't why they're listening in. They're listening in to record all your conversations with your lawyers, to give copies of those recordings to the prosecutors, like they did in my case, as we have proven. So,
one question I have, though, hearing that is knowing what you know and that you believed that before. Is there any different level of care or different approach you can have?
I'm not sure I understand the question exactly. Do I have a different level of care? You bet. I can't believe they're doing this to me. I can't believe what's going on. Everything I've ever heard of, I've seen going on in my case. We are filing today with the U.S. Supreme Court a petition for 2 writs, prohibition and mandamus, in connection with the feds invading my attorney-client privilege right from day one. They have ruthlessly, repeatedly, doggedly, and with rancor, I think I'd say, opened my mail to lawyers, listened into and recorded my telephone calls to lawyers, listened into my attorney booth confidential meetings with lawyers. Even the judge in my case did. Even the judge during the trial. He had a little secret hearing. There were lots of secret hearings in my case, and all those 29 sidebar conferences in my trial that I was not allowed to attend. And several secret hearings, many secret filed documents that are still sealed. And the only point of these being sealed, as near as I can tell, is that they make the government look bad. That's been the purpose of it. I'd like to have everything in my case unsealed. It should have been unsealed from the beginning. There shouldn't have ever been one closed hearing. And yet, there was a closed hearing before my defense started. My defense, there's a joke, started being put on, in which the judge remonstrated with my lawyer in this sealed hearing that I wasn't allowed to attend, that I wasn't allowed to even know about during my trial, claiming that I had said to him, well, if we need a continuance to get Dr. Papson here, I'll have to explain this now, won't I? Then I can guarantee us 3 days with a medical emergency. Now, I'm alleged to have said that. I probably shouldn't say I admit that I said that, okay? But there's nothing wrong with it. You know, it's like that telephone call to my wife. Listen to the damn call and ask yourself if it really can be taken as attempting to twist a witness or attempting to stand her up to tell the truth. It can go both ways, obviously, because they were able to charge me and convince a jury, but the way it was meant isn't the way it was taken.
You think the judge is corrupt in this case?
I can't say that. I mean, I'm not allowed to say that. It would literally be illegal for me to say that. Doesn't matter about me being a lawyer. They're already disbarring me in every state I'm admitted in. But I'll tell you this. He's certainly been guilty of several cases of judicial misconduct. There has been reversible error in and outside that trial, enough that I'm confident I am going to get a new trial.
That was what I was going to say. If all of these things have taken place and you have ways to prove them, then your motion for a new trial should be...
I can prove them.
But is the same thing going to happen to you, do you think, in a new trial?
I hope not.
Change in the second time around.
We need a new judge. We need a new jury, obviously. We need some new prosecutors whose minds aren't tainted. I mean, my lawyer, the first lawyer I had, the public defender, said to me in anger one day, he says, you might as well tell Tracy Whalen, who's the prosecutor, everything anyway, because she hears about it before I do. And he was talking about my phone calls to these other lawyers I was talking to being bugged.
And that's the contention, right? That because they were not your lawyers of record in this case, they could be listened to.
Well, that is the unwritten policy of the U.S. Marshal Service. U.S. Marshal Service is responsible for prisoner integrity, safety, security. And they are the implementers, the water carriers for the prosecutors who give the orders and who get the copies of the tapes and the letters and the conference recordings. It's astounding. It goes on. It goes on more in my case, I think, than it does most.
But I mean, as an attorney, you've got to see that side of it. They're not your attorneys of record in the case, so how can it be privileged?
Well, read the Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It says that they are. How am I supposed to interview? Look, I was talking to other attorneys to interview to get a new attorney on the case. How am I expected to interview a new attorney if I can't? I mean, I got to discuss the case with them, don't I? And it turned out I've gotten a new attorney on this case twice now. One when I switched from that public defender to the guy who handled the trial, who mishandled the trial, and then after the trial when I got Wes Hoyt to represent me. Now, each time you got to talk to these guys, and it was those two lawyers, McAllister, my trial lawyer, and Hoyt, my current lawyer. It was my conversations with those two lawyers, guys who became my attorneys of record, that they were getting the recordings of. And we've got the proof of it. You know, we've got the proof during the trial because we got the transcript of that secret hearing. You're not allowed to see it, but I've seen it. They accidentally showed it to me, is how I even found out the hearing had taken place, where the judge admits on the record that a U.S. Marshal Service employee had brought that to him. That's remarkable. He shouldn't have listened to it once he realized it was attorney-client privilege, and he shouldn't have used it the way he did against my lawyer, because he intimidated him. That was the point at which my lawyer really stood down and absolutely stopped presenting a defense. This is before we got to start presenting a defense, incidentally. That's why my defense took less than a day, such as it was.
Do you wish you would have taken the stand now?
Oh, absolutely. No question in my mind. I wanted to take the stand at the time, and I got talked out of it against my better judgment.